So welcome back. This is the third video in this series. I've finished stripping the top and the bottom of the kayak, and now we're going to be moving along. We're going to be doing a lot of scraping and a whole bunch of sanding, and then we're going to fill in that cockpit area as well as filling in some of the little nail holes that we made. Let's get going. Now I did do a bunch of scraping just to get off some of the high parts and get off some of the dried glue, but I think I'm going to move on to sanding just to get everything nice and smooth.
So I spent quite a long time sanding. I sanded and then I filled and then I sanded some more and then I filled some more, and I kept going up a grit until I got to about 180.
So I'm about 80% done the sanding on the top side of the kayak. I just need to go up a grit and I'll do a little bit more. But for now, I've flipped the kayak over and I'm going to be working on filling and sanding the bottom. It's not quite warm enough yet outside to start thinking about fiberglass. So hopefully by the time I'm done all of my sanding and filling, then I'll be able to get ready for glass.
So the next thing to do is to fill all of these nail holes. So what I've done is I bought 3 different shades of wood filler, and I feel that by mixing these together, I should be able to get some shades that match up with the particular tone of each piece of wood fairly closely. Let's see how it goes. So for example, for these ones here, all seem to be a similar color. So I feel like if I take a little bit of that one, and just a hair lighter, so I'm going to add some of the lighter one. And then I'm just going to mix them together. And then I'm going to put it into the hole. I feel like that one works really well. That was it. Yeah, once that dries, you'll barely be able to see those.
So I filled all of the holes, which took me quite a long time. I didn't just use that stick. I did have a putty knife, so it went a little bit quicker. And I filled in some of the bigger cracks, and then it was time for more and more and more and more and more sanding, as you can see here.
The next thing to do is to fill in the cockpit area. We're going to put slats crossways, strips crossways across here, all the way up and all the way down. And then once those have all dried and we fiberglassed it, we're going to cut out the actual cockpit recess and put the little edge on it that would take a spray skirt. So to do the pieces in the cockpit, they don't actually need to go all the way across because we're going to be cutting the middle section out so that we can get into the kayak. But I do want to put some pieces all the way across so that it holds everything in place as I'm gluing it. So I'm just decided to do 2 short and then a piece across, and I'll do another 2 short pieces and then a piece across there to just kind of hold everything in place as I fill up this whole section.
So this part didn't actually take that long. I would do a couple of short pieces and a couple of long pieces sort of in both directions and clamp them and hold them and then wait for the glue to dry, and then come back the next day and do a few more pieces. So it only took a few days to get the whole cockpit done, of working sort of like, 15 to 20 minutes a day. And I just moved in both directions at the same time until I got all the way to the end and filled the entire thing in.
Okay, we're going to be doing the first layer of fiberglass on the top section today, so let's see how it goes.
So unfortunately, as you can see, my camera's focus was a little bit off for this, but you can see generally what we're doing. We lay out the fiberglass all the way from one end to the other, making sure that it overhangs everywhere. And then you just soak the fiberglass with resin using, we just used a brush and a squeegee all the way from one end until the other, until there's no bubbles.
So here's what it looks like with that coat of glass and resin on the top. Looks pretty nice. Really makes the wood grain pop. The surface does have a few sort of ripples in it, so I think it's going to need a sand and another coat of resin at some point. But for now, I'm just going to take a knife and I'm going to trim off all the excess glass.
I might have let this cure for a little bit too long because it was fairly hard to cut. So I think for the next one, I'll remember to cut this off before the glass is fully hardened, just to make it a little easier. And so the next thing was to do the exact same thing with the bottom section.
And now the bottom has been fiberglassed and secured up. So we're just going to trim off this bottom edge right here. And we just do that with a sharp knife. I'm finding that if I just kind of go like this, still ever so slightly soft. There we go. Just like that. All the way along.
And this final time lapse just shows me putting the glass and resin on the inside of the bottom section. So what really gives the strength to this boat is having the wood be sandwiched between two layers of fiberglass, kind of like a surfboard where you have two layers of fiberglass sandwiching foam, and it makes it quite strong and rigid. And once this one cured up, I noticed that the bottom section of the kayak was very stiff and rigid. So that's it.
So the next step is to measure and cut out for the cockpit area and build the entire cockpit coaming. And then I'm going to sand and fiberglass the inside of the top section. And then we're looking at connecting the two sections together and making a seat and doing some final finishing. And then hopefully we'll be done.